The story of this film is set in 1985 in the United Kingdom, right in the middle of the real-life video nasty moral panic. This was a time when controversial horror VHS tapes were heavily debated and often banned by the British authorities. Back then, many films were censored. Some people believe that politicians deliberately targeted these movies to distract the public, which had a strong impact on creativity, especially during a period marked by fear of crime, unemployment, and major social change. Certain politicians pushed to protect the children narrative. This helped them gain public support, project a tough-on-crime image, and attract media attention, even though these so-called video nasty films were actually made for adult audiences. Whatever the case, all of this really did happen. What feels especially strange is that even a masterpiece like The Evil Dead was temporarily banned in the UK at the time. Explaining all of this is important because it is a key part of the film. Although the movie itself is fictional, it presents the situation as if video nasties were genuinely seen as extremely dangerous for society back then. The film begins inside the British Board of Film Classification, where Enid Baines and her co-worker, Sanderson, are reviewing a horror slasher tape. Enid, played by Niamh Algar, is the main character, serious, detailed, and deeply committed to her work. Because public pressure is high, every film must be checked carefully. The movie they review has some intense scenes. Enid thinks those moments should be removed, while Sanderson believes they are part of the film's creativity. Enid is experienced in watching disturbing material and often rewinds scenes to examine them properly. During a staff meeting, the team debates whether a film should be rejected, and most members decide to block it. Enid's dedication shows again when she stays late at the office, long after everyone leaves. The film perfectly captures the tense atmosphere of 1980s UK, with nostalgic visuals and a story filled with hidden clues in almost every scene and dialogue for viewers who look closely. On her way home, Enid sees a red-haired woman and calls out to her, thinking she is someone else. This moment becomes important later. That night, Enid's mother invites her to dinner, where her parents show her a death certificate belonging to Enid's younger sister. 20 years earlier, in 1965, her sister disappeared in Chorleywood while Enid was with her. No one ever found out what happened. This reveals that Enid has been living with deep trauma for 2 decades. She still thinks about her sister constantly and quietly blames herself for not saving her. Because of this guilt, Enid lives a very isolated life. She never married, has no relationship, and throws herself into her job to stay distracted. Seeing the death certificate hurts her. Enid refuses to accept that her sister is gone. She still believes she might return someday. Her parents, however, want closure and gently tell her to move on. Enid agrees outwardly, but cannot accept it inside. This moment shows us Enid's core. For 20 years, she has buried her trauma, but being forced to confront the truth triggers something inside her. Suppressed memories begin to rise again. This becomes the story's first major trigger point. When Enid returns home, memories of her sister come back, so she looks through old photos. We learn that her sister Nina also had red hair, which explains why Enid mistakenly called out to that woman earlier. It shows Enid still carries that loss inside her. The film also includes a few scenes that reflect the rising social tension in the UK during that time. The next day, Enid and Anne review a violent film called Extreme Coda, produced by Doug Smart. Later, Enid and Sanderson are called into their boss's office. He shares bad news. A film they recently approved is now linked to a real crime. In that movie, there was a scene where a man harms another man's face, but Enid and Sanderson had decided to leave most scenes untouched. A real incident has just happened where a man harmed his 2 children and attacked his wife, and in the end, he does the same thing to her wife's face that was done in the film Deranged. When questioned, the man claimed he remembered nothing. Reporters immediately connected the crime to the movie and started calling him the amnesiac killer. A journalist even discovered that Enid and Sanderson were the ones who reviewed the film, so people began blaming them. This deeply affects Enid. That evening, she receives a call from a stranger who blames her directly for the tragedy. Already struggling with guilt from her past, Enid now feels responsible for this event too, thinking that if she had removed that scene, the crime might not have been connected to the film, even though the man never mentioned the movie at all. News channels keep discussing the case, and Enid's buried memories start resurfacing again. Next day at the office, Enid can't focus, partly because some co-workers, especially Sanderson, are quietly blaming her for the recent crime. This hurts her, and it adds to the guilt she already carries inside. That day, producer Doug Smart visits. Enid doesn't like his work because she had just reviewed one of his films where a woman was treated badly. Doug is known for flirting, and he talks to Enid the same way, even offering her a role in his films. Enid gives him a direct answer, saying she doesn't want that kind of attention, but Doug claims audiences enjoy it. Before leaving, he mentions that Enid will soon review a new movie directed by Frederick North, something already on their list. Later, Enid and her co-worker Perkins start reviewing the film Don't Go in the Church. This screening feels different. The movie begins with 2 young girls walking through a forest and reaching a cabin where they play a scary childhood game. The moment strongly affects Enid because she and her sister Nina had once gone into the woods the same way. In the film, one girl enters the cabin and the other follows with an axe and harms her friend. For most people, it's just a horror scene, but for Enid, who is already struggling with trauma and has no memory of the day Nina disappeared, it feels personal and overwhelming. Perkins notices her reaction and immediately senses something is wrong. Enid says little, but one question keeps bothering her. If the amnesiac killer forgot everything, could that explain why she can't remember what happened to Nina, how she vanished, or who took her? Perkins tells her that the mind can block painful truth, changing or shutting down memories we cannot handle. He even asks her out, but she isn't interested. Frederick North's film has already triggered something in her. We then see a scene that feels like Enid's nightmare. She walks through an underground tunnel, hears strange voices, and disappears into darkness, a symbol of her mind slipping deeper into confusion. That night, she briefly calls her mother, who reassures her that she doesn't need to blame herself for everything. Later, Enid has disturbing dreams mixing scenes from Don't Go in the Church, her mother, and Nina. Because of this, she returns to work determined to watch more of Frederick North's films, convinced they contain something she needs to understand. At work, Enid can't access more Frederick North films because they aren't on the review list and would take weeks to request. So that evening, she visits a local video store where the owner secretly sells banned tapes. She manages to convince him to give her the only North film he has, Asunder, a supernatural horror movie. At home, Enid watches it and becomes disturbed. The lead actress has red hair like Nina, and Enid keeps rewinding scenes as if she's searching for a hidden clue. She also remembers seeing a bright, cheerful family film in the shop, a detail the movie hints is important. Feeling overwhelmed, Enid visits her parents. They're surprised because she rarely comes. She tells them she believes Nina is still alive and insists that actress Alice Lee is actually her grown-up sister. Her father replies that they tried to protect Enid from this pain, but she always follows her impulses, even the day she took Nina into the woods. This suggests they either blame her quietly or hid something from her. With no support from her family, Enid returns home and replays the film featuring Alice Lee. She falls asleep and dreams of Nina outside a cabin in the woods, now appearing as Alice Lee. A strange man stands behind Nina, watching. Nina follows him inside, and although Enid calls out, she goes in, forcing Enid to follow. Whether this is a dream or a piece of her buried memory, the film leaves unclear. The next day, Enid finds Doug Smart's address at the office and visits him that night. Doug is surprised but happy to see her, assuming she came to spend time with him. Enid says she was passing by, and he eagerly invites her inside. She immediately notices that one of the disturbing scenes from his movie was actually filmed in his house. Doug shows off his trophies and keeps trying to get closer to her. Enid spots a photo of Alice Lee and mentions how similar they look. Doug agrees, though it's clear he's mainly focused on Enid. They talk about Don't Go in the Church, and Doug reveals a sequel is being shot in the same forest. When Enid asks if Alice will star again, he says yes, but it will be her last film. He simply means her final project with their team. But Enid interprets it as a threat. She presses him about what they plan to do to Alice, but Doug doesn't take her questions seriously. He has no idea that Enid believes Alice might actually be Nina, or that she suspects Frederick North kidnapped her long ago. Doug isn't interested in any of this. He only wants to take advantage of the situation. When he tries to force himself on her, Enid panics. Focused only on finding the truth about her sister, she pushes him away and accidentally kills him with one of his trophies. She is shocked for a moment, then suddenly behaves as if nothing unusual happened, a clear sign of her slipping reality. After going home and taking a shower, Enid receives a call from an unknown person, blaming her for approving violent films. The next day at the office, she secretly looks up information on Frederick North's movies, especially the locations where his last films were shot. She isn't authorized to access this, but she no longer cares about rules. Meanwhile, others in the office mention that the amnesiac killer had never actually seen Deranged, the film everyone believed inspired him. Ignoring all of this, Enid travels to the forest where Frederick North's new film is being shot. The movie adds an interesting touch here. The aspect ratio slowly narrows as Enid sinks deeper into her trauma, visually showing her collapsing sense of reality. When Enid arrives on set, a makeup artist named Debbie mistakes her for an actress and brings her inside. She begins doing Enid's makeup, dresses her in a white costume, and Enid realizes she's been cast as Alice Lee's sister. A crew member says the scene is ready, but the producer hasn't arrived. Debbie is confused because Doug never missed shoot days, confirming he truly died earlier, not just in Enid's imagination. Enid is taken to the set, where they throw red paint on her for the scene. She asks Debbie what they plan to do to Alice, but Debbie doesn't understand. Enid then approaches Frederick North and questions him about Alice. He assumes she's simply a very intense fan. When she asks where the sister scene idea came from, Frederick says it's based on a true story. In fact, all his films come from real events. Frederick North still has no idea Enid isn't an actress. What makes it more surreal is that she's been cast as Alice Lee's sister, a role Enid now believes is real, and everything around her seems to reinforce that belief. Hearing Enid's intense questions, Frederick assumes she's simply deep in character. The crew hands her an axe and sends her to a cabin where a strange man waits, a darker version of the role Enid is meant to play. Alice Lee is there too, with the man standing close to her. By now, Enid has completely broken down. She suddenly attacks the man and finishes him. Alice screams in shock, and the crew is frozen in disbelief. Enid then turns on Frederick North, accusing him of being responsible, and attacks him as well. Alice, terrified, runs into the forest. Enid chases after her, insisting she shouldn't be afraid and calling her Nina. Alice cries that Enid killed her friend, but Enid claims she only did it to protect her because they're sisters. Alice screams that she already has one sister, and it's not Enid, before running away again. Enid breaks down, repeating that Alice must be her sister. Deep inside, she knows it isn't true, but her mind refuses to accept Nina's death, forcing her to cling to the illusion. This moment fully reveals her collapsing mental state. Crying, Enid drops to the ground, and the screen begins to flicker, visually showing her reality falling apart. Suddenly, a bright light flashes, and Alice appears through the smoke, smiling happily. She tells Enid that she came to save her, and that they should go home now. Enid is overjoyed and runs with her through the forest. They get into a car and drive away. On the radio, a news report announces that all video nasties have been permanently banned. Crime in Britain has dropped to zero. Every criminal is in jail, and there is nothing left to fear. It feels like the perfect happy ending, the kind of world that doesn't exist in real life. Enid and Alice arrive at Enid's parents' house, where her parents joyfully welcome both daughters. But between these cheerful moments, the film shows quick flashes of the real world. Dark, unsettling glimpses that reveal this happiness isn't real. The truth is that this happy ending exists only inside Enid's mind. She has created a fantasy where Nina has returned, her family is whole again, and everything is perfect. Her mind tries to break through with moments of reality, but Enid refuses to see them, convinced everything is fine. She even looks toward the camera and smiles. This imagined ending mirrors the bright family movie poster Enid saw earlier at the video store. But behind this illusion, something truly disturbing has happened. The film simply doesn't show it. We are left to imagine the real horror as the story ends.